Welcome back, everyone, to the 2019 Shots and Cigars podcast. I am your host, King Daddy, and I would like to start off by apologizing that we have been gone for so long, but we have had a clusterfuck or a snafu, if you prefer me to say it without cursing. We moved into the new studio, or house/studio, ran into a few difficulties, and it took us a long time to get moved in. We were supposed to be moved in originally before Thanksgiving. Then they changed it to before Christmas, and then it ended up being last Sunday, which was the 20th of January. So we're finally in, finally got the internet hooked up, finally got everything that we need, got the studio, partially set up. I am not completely set up, but I'm set up enough to go. I do have wires draped across the desk and wires under the desk, and I need to do a few things in here, but at least I can record. This has been a mess. All this rain we've had this winter just really held up the construction production. They were unable to work several days per week, every single week, because it seemed like every weekend it would rain, and then they had to wait a couple of days for it to dry up. They would come back in here on Thursday morning to work, and then Friday afternoon it would start raining again, and they would have to quit. So it took us quite a bit of time to get everything finished up and to get the porch built on the front of the house and the walkway and the driveway finished so we could move. And I realized that I told, the audience out there that I would be back by the first of the year, and it did not happen. So again, my sincere apologies for that. But we're back now, and we will continue on with our weekly shows. Might even throw in a few 2 times a week just to make up for the fact that we were gone for almost a month. But here we are in what I call the Taj Matini, because our little house is not very big, although the view is beautiful. It's in the country. My studio is small but very functional. The rest of the house is small but very functional. It's not a tiny home, but it's close. It's about 960 square feet, and I absolutely love being here. My wife grew up right up the hill, and it just feels good to be home. There are a lot of differences being out here in the country than there was living in town too. Like, for instance, I can't hear my neighbor's radio as she stands outside of her car in the middle of the street dancing. Don't understand what the hell that's about, but they did it every day. They sat out on the front porch, they listened to music, and they danced in the middle of the yard like crazy fucking people. That is an advantage to living in the country that living in town you do not have. One of the things in town was, if your neighbors did something, you might as well be a part of what they're doing because you can most likely hear it and see it. But out here, I don't hear and see shit. My neighbors can scream and yell at each other and fight and fuss and do whatever they want to, and I don't know a thing about it, nor do I want to know anything about it. Because one thing that I have learned about the world from living in apartments and living in town, people are fucked up. There are some really, really, really fucked up people out there in this world, and they do not mind showing you how fucked up they are every single day. They don't care if you hear them fight. They don't care if you hear them fuss. They don't care. Whatever. You have no personal space when you live in town. At least out here we have personal space. I can sit here in my studio and look out my window, and the only thing I see is trees, and I like it like that. That is the best way. So when I hear things that are going on in other parts of the city around the area where I live, those things aren't taking place where I live. But when I go to town, I do have to see them. Funny story. Went to Starbucks, got a cup of coffee, in the drive-thru. The person on the other end of the intercom asked me what I wanted. I gave her my order, got up to the window, and this man hand reached out the window, handed me my drink, turned around to take my money, and it was a dude wearing like a blue woman's wig with an Adam's apple. And when it walked away, he, she, whatever the fuck it was wearing capri pants. I don't ordinarily see that out here. As a matter of fact, never. But those are the kind of things that you see in town. Another thing that really bothers me, and it is an absolute pet peeve of mine, is to be sitting around in public and watching all these dumbasses sucking these little battery pack Ecigs that they have in their pocket. And they just randomly, willy-nilly pull the damn things out and just suck on them and blow the air vapor out into the air. And all of a sudden your area smells like cotton candy or whatever. I mean, I don't want to smell cigarette smoke either, don't get me wrong. I used to smoke cigars, and I understand that nobody probably wanted to smell that. But I really do not want to be walking around smelling cotton candy or some kind of fruity flavor that somebody's blowing out of a battery pack and sucking it into their throat. You know, these things still have nicotine, so I don't really understand what the big deal about it is, other than this is another one of those things that our fagtards out there have adopted and decided that they want to do in their everyday life. But yet the news media will talk about toxic masculinity. It's toxic if you're too manly. I think it's toxic if you're not manly at all. I have a problem with that. I don't want to see my Starbucks server with an Adam's apple and capri pants. I don't want to see some little fagtard sucking an e-cig and walking around thinking he rules the world. You know, this is what happens when our young people think that they can rule the world. And this is very tragic, and I felt bad when I heard this. But that little teenage boy in Iowa getting in the fight with his parents because they took away his cell phone, and then he runs away and they find his body because it's bitterly cold outside. You know, what are people thinking? I mean, obviously that young man was thinking about his selfishness over that cell phone. And kids have gotten to be so selfish that you can't even teach them in the education system because everything is surrounded by the hurting of their feelings. Oh my God, I used to get my feelings hurt all the time. I worked at K&W Cafeteria in the mall washing dishes when I was 16 years old. And the manager of the cafeteria yelled at us, sent us home, fired us constantly. I mean, she didn't fire us permanently because her husband, who was also a manager there, would always tell us, you know, just come back tomorrow, son, and try again. But still, they didn't mind hurting our feelings because getting your feelings hurt and taking a certain amount of rejection and you know, dealing with the things of everyday life are what make you better people when you grow up. If it weren't for rejection, if it weren't for having my feelings hurt, if it weren't for being placed in uncomfortable situations, I don't believe that I would be the man I am today. But these little kids today think that, you know, oh my God, if you hurt my feelings, I'm going to call the police and have you arrested because you've infringed on my fucking civil rights. First of all, you don't have civil rights. The public school system has gotten so out of hand that they have let the children take over the public school system. Nobody's learning anything. Our ability as a country to live up to the standards of other nations as far as learning and intelligence goes, we're at the bottom. We're not all the way at the bottom, but we're close. We're low. And that's because they've let kids take over the school system. They let them do whatever they want. There's a story that I saw on the news yesterday, I believe it was, where they're getting upset about what girls wear to school. Well, if everybody in the school system wore a uniform and everybody looked alike, then you wouldn't have to worry about the girl coming to school with her titties showing in a spaghetti strap top or shorts that were too short, because she would be wearing a pair of khaki pants or jeans, a school shirt, and a pair of tennis shoes. And she would come to school and she would sit in her desk and she would be instructed on what she was supposed to do. And if she didn't do what she was supposed to do, she'd be, or he, will be removed from the classroom. There was another story in the Charlotte area where their idea to combat the fact that more African American children are getting suspended than white children was to suspend them less and hire more teachers that looked like them. So now we have a bunch of kids who are sitting in class doing whatever the hell they want to, wearing whatever the hell they want to, and getting special privilege because the school system won't blame the child because they're acting out and disrupting class and creating an environment of non-learning. There's bound to be something that we're doing wrong. Yeah, well, there is something you're doing wrong. You're letting the children take over your fucking school, and you're creating a generation of goddamn monsters. There is no reason why these children should be allowed to take over the school system and do the things that they do. I just don't understand it. Because these kids leave the school system, then they move into a college situation or a work situation where your feelings get hurt legitimately on a daily basis, and they don't know how to act because they've had everything handed to them and laid out before them as if they ruled the world, and that's not the way things work. When I was in school, you did what you were told, period. You didn't do your homework, you got a 0. There were no excuses. The dog ate my homework is a joke all across the land for one reason, because it is actually a joke. That's not an excuse. I didn't do my homework last night because I was really feeling blue and my feelings were hurt. So I think I'll lay in my room and listen to emo music and smoke my Ecig and play on my phone. That's a serious problem. I don't understand why we allow that to happen. Since when did we as a society allow the people who should not have a say-so to all of a sudden start having a say-so? I understand that school shootings are tragic. But do we really need the teenagers voicing their opinion about the school shootings and saying what they think that they should be done? So now they're taking time out of class and they're traveling all over the country and they're doing rallies and getting people together about, gun laws and doing all this stuff because they think that they have a say-so. Here's my opinion. Let the grown-ups solve the problems. You stay the hell out of it. And if adults will start acting like adults and put you back in your place, we won't have to worry about shit anymore because you will no longer be in charge of it. There is so much going on in the world. I mean, you're telling kids now that we can't spank you, we can't tell you what gender you are because you get to decide that on your own. I even heard the other day somebody made the comment that you couldn't change your child's diaper without their permission. What the fuck? I change my grandson's diaper all the time, and I can't look at him and say, I'm going to change your diaper now. Is it okay? And guess what? He can't tell me. All he knows is that he pissed and shit in his pants, and it needs changing. I am an adult, and I, as an adult, have the right to make the decision to make sure that he don't walk around with piss and shit in his pants. That's my job because I'm a grown-up, and that's what grown-ups do. So now we have kids who are dictating the policy of how they want things done, and we expect our country to work when we have literally given up the reins of our country to crazy people and children. I don't get it. We have a president who likes to hash out his feelings in tweets. We have Congress people who like to bite back at him in tweets. Since when did social media become an avenue for solving the world's problems? I don't need to see a tweet from my president to certain members of the United States Congress about policy and the differences in how they feel about certain things. I mean, there is absolutely no reason for this to go on. None. It's almost like Donald Trump hit his ball over Nancy Pelosi's fence, and Nancy Pelosi refuses to throw the ball back, or vice versa. It is absolutely ridiculous. And we want people to grow up, and we want people to have, some sense about them. We want people to be able to act like adults, and you can't even watch the news and see the President of the United States acting like an adult. Now, I know that there are some things that he is doing that I do agree with, but there's a lot of things in his actions that I do not. The one thing that I disagree with the most about his actions are the fact that he is not setting forth an example of how an adult is supposed to act. Adults don't fight with each other over Twitter. Adults don't post things on social media to gouge one another. I agree that social media is a good tool. You can use social media to voice your opinion, but do we really need the President of the United States and top members of Congress and the Senate tweeting back and forth with their little tug of war? I don't think we do. We're not showing the young people that we have coming up that are now 14, 15, 16 years old how they are supposed to act. They believe that if you scream loud enough, you'll get what you want, and that's not how life works. If you want to get what you want, you work for it. You strive for it. And believe it or not, sometimes you just don't fucking get it. You lose. People lose. Every single day you lose. We started the process of this house last June. I wanted to move in by October. I didn't get my way. I was mad. And I made a few phone calls and I complained, but not one time did I get on Facebook or Twitter and bitch about the company that was doing my house, because it was between me and them. And then unfortunately the rain stepped in and took care of most of the problem. There was really nobody to bitch at. But I lost that battle. And I ended up moving in this house on January 20th as opposed to October and November, because that was a battle that I did not win. But it was still not a battle that needed to be fought publicly. And we're teaching our kids that they can absolutely do and say anything that they want to, and they can justify it by just screaming, "You hurt my feelings," or "You didn't give me my way," or "That's not how I think it should go." And then somebody caves in and gives it to them, and we can't expect them not to gripe and complain and bitch and do the things that they do when they're watching prominent adults do the same exact thing. We're not an example. We're not teaching people, how you grow up. Everybody in life does not get things laid out for them on a silver platter exactly like they want it. Most of the people that you know that have stuff, and here's one that you're not going to like, young people, if you're listening, they earned stuff. There are some people out there who have things that are given to them, and they usually end up squandering it away. But when you earn something and you take pride in owning it because you put forth the effort and used your own money to get it, you're proud of it and you take care of it. I've bought the kids things when they were younger, and they totally destroyed those things. But as they got older and worked, I use cars for an example. Give the kids cars when they turn 16, and they don't give a shit about how dirty that car is. They don't give a shit how mangled it becomes. They don't care how they drive it. They don't care how the tires look. They spin the tires and burn the rubber off of them and sling it around. But as soon as they're forced into a situation where they purchase their own car, it gets regular maintenance checkups and washed. There is so much to be said for teaching somebody how to earn something. But instead, we're raising a willy-nilly bunch of fagtards that like to run around in the streets screaming about how unfair things are, fighting with their parents over a cell phone, by the way, which is not your right to have. It is a privilege to have a cell phone. It is not my right to have a cell phone. I have a cell phone because I pay for a cell phone plan. I have a house because we worked and we paid and we accomplished this house. Nobody gave it to us. We have cars sitting in the driveway because we went to work and earned the money to purchase these cars. Nobody gave them to us. Nobody went out and allowed us to rule the roost because we thought that we could just have whatever we wanted to, because we've come into a situation where the squeaky wheel really does get the grease. That was always an expression when I was growing up, and now it's more true than ever. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we've got so many squeaky wheels out there getting greased and things handed to them, and making room for your feelings in a world where feelings oftentimes really just don't matter. Nobody gives a shit how you feel, you little sniveling fagtard. Nobody cares. I care about you getting up in the morning, eating your breakfast, going to school, doing your schoolwork, participating in a couple of activities, coming home, doing your homework, going to bed and starting over, and then enjoying yourself on the weekends. And when you turn 16 years old, getting you a job and earning your way. We need to stop coddling to people, because that is what has created a generation of skirt-wearing, Ecig puffing fagtards. And you are listening to Shots and Cigars with a King. Have a good day.